we thank you for bringing us here tonight. Please watch over our people as they travel back and forth. And please watch over us even in these hard decisions that we have to make. Please guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Roll call.
We're all trying to cover for Kelly. She's probably watching, saying they can't even do my job.
We can't, Haley.
Okay. All right. Roll call. Bo Barton.
Here.
Melinda Ballard.
Here.
Baron Glass.
Here.
Maria Bass.
Here.
Johnny Fallon.
Here.
Gary Castles.
Here.
Randy Rance.
Here.
That was it. Here. Now,
We're going to do a review and vote on the approval of the minutes for the April 10th board meeting and the April 24th finance. Oh, second. Oh, I'm sorry. Executive committee report.
Okay, the checks all checked out well. We are still down 1.9% from last year on our taxes.
Now, we're going to review and approve the minutes for the April 10th board meeting and the 24th finance committee meeting and May 3rd board retreat minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. I second
All in favor?
it.
I would like to comment a little bit on the retreat that we had Saturday. It was really a nice retreat. I believe everybody enjoyed it. We went over a few things and talked about a few things and talked about not only school but family and everything else. And really had a good discussion all around with everybody. We did the Clifton Strength Professional Development. And that's really a neat thing. I've never been involved in anything like that. And I brought it home, and Amanda likes it more than I do. But anyway, it was really good, and I think everybody found out a little bit of something about themselves in this. And I know I did anyway.
The food was good too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Randy.
Oh,
I wanted leftovers. We said it, I ate it all.
been eating all week long. But anyway, we talked about the funds, and we talked about the problems we had with budgets and things like that. And I would like to comment on how much the directors and principals and other people got involved in trying to get our budget situation under control. And Nikki's team got together, and they spent, I'm sure, countless hours doing this with different groups, and then meeting after meeting after meeting. Matter of fact, Nikki had a whole list of meetings that we got to see that they did. But anyway, I was really glad to see that. I know it put everybody out of their comfort zone to do this, and but I do appreciate everything, and the people of this parish should appreciate everything that y'all have done to bring our budget under control. The things that we decided that we can do that reduce our budget have greatly improved our financial situation, and we sure do appreciate it. It's something that we can live with. For the time being. And like I said, the retreat turned out real well. I believe everybody learned a lot, and everybody appreciated each other. I guess next on our agenda.
You forgot the most important thing, we took no action on voting.
Oh, no, we didn't do it. The next thing is employee of the month. Katie,
anytime during May. Every May I get to talk, and that's okay. But Courtney Watts is my assistant principal, and she was nominated as our Employee of the Month. So I want to read a little bit about Courtney. So Courtney has been a dedicated employee at Parish Junior High for the past 10 years. She is known as our crafty Courtney. She is our party planner. She's the curriculum guru. She is always focused on student achievement and our students having a voice while having fun. Courtney was a nationally board certified teacher before moving into administration. But what sets Courtney apart is she goes the extra mile. She makes everything so cute and thinks outside the box so that our culture of our school is always positive. She has a great rapport with her staff, students, and parents. If anyone deserves to be recognized for her work ethic and dedication to make our school amazing, it's her. So.
We have a presentation. In the very back of your folder, you'll find the sheet that has been updated, and we're excited of the results we've seen. Ms. Witt was not over here, but Ms. Coates will share her part for Ms. Witt. This is the Lucy Upward Day. I will say this team back here and Ms. Gregory, those schools, the junior high school, have worked so hard for the results that you're going to see. If you'll turn, and then Ms. Coates, you want to share Ms. Well, first of all, if you will see in that sheet, you're going to see where we were at the beginning of the year, middle of the year. Look at the end of the year. All the green from the beginning to the end. Where we were in the middle of the year, we had some decline. We knew our focus was first, second, and third, but they shined. They came through and they grew. First grade came up and grew 26%. And you'll also, on your updated one, you're going to have the number in parentheses is the number of students of how many there are on grade level. So at the beginning of the year in first grade, we had 47, middle of the year 42, and then end of the year we have 71 students on benchmark. So we're excited about that growth. Second grade was another target that we realized from the middle of the year that had dropped. It was 56, moved to 49, and now we're at 57. Our third grade is the one that we have that law under. If the state says if they fall in the red, they have to be given the test again, and then if they don't make above, well below, they have to come to summer school. This year we only have 5 compared to all the years that we've had, so we're excited. So they grew from 58% to 53, and now to 71. That's 68 students that are on benchmark right now. So we're excited about that. Fourth grade, you see the numbers. They grew. They had 42 beginning of the year, middle of the year 47, and now at 50. So that's 47 students that are ready to go. And in fifth grade, they had growth also from 39 students at 32%, 38%, that's 45, and now at 51%, 59. And then in sixth grade, they kept growing, 37%, 57%, and now at 59%. So we're excited. Seventh grade is our grade that we just started this year, and so we know there's work to do, but you're going to see how much growth, individual growth that they're doing. We don't work with all of them, it's just the students that we're tracking. And our ninth grade is one, they're actually finishing up the test today, or this week, so I don't have their data yet, so it should be forthcoming. All right, Ms. Coates?
Maria, thank you for putting those numbers in there. I appreciate that a lot. Just one question. It looks like about 4 out of 6 kind of had a fall down in the middle of the year. It's been a big increase at the end.
Yes.
Why do you think that happened?
We're going to actually let them talk about it, and when their slide comes up, because they will explain it.
I like watching the movie and
Yes.
telling everybody what you got. I asked a question too early.
That's okay. You're always ready. All right.
Commissioner Barton to address that. Rhonda, one of the things she did address when we talked about today was in her opinion, it's like until they saw their middle of the year number, then it's like, oh gosh, we got to work. And it's like and not that they weren't working, but it was like they didn't I'm speaking for the early childhood, the two teachers, two sets of teachers, but they didn't, it was almost like middle of the year, it was like, oh my gosh, we gotta go, and they worked a little harder. So, and that was just coming from her. Looking at the beginning of the year alphabet knowledge, of course, these were students who, over half of them had no exposure at all. So 51% or 41 of the students were below. So that was a little, just, barely over half. By middle of the year, that had decreased to 33. And now at the end of the year, there are only 15 students who are intensive, moving on. And she did note on that, of those 7 students did have an IEP. All of them are receiving intensive services right now, but 7 of those 15 do have an IEP. So they'll be getting, they're already getting extra help and will continue to get that.
And what we're excited about this is alphabet knowledge is what carries over to kindergarten as a letter naming fluency. So seeing this, knowing that they're coming to us, at least knowing the letters. So we're excited to see, we know at the beginning of the year, kindergarten will have to quickly drill because we know the summer slide. But they'll quickly drill, review those. But looking at 54% coming into us for letter naming is a big aha for us. We're
So
excited
Nick,
about that.
we're making sure that the projected cuts that we're looking at is gonna have the least impact on what we're doing now, right?
Right, oh, yeah.
And then-
Our class sizes will still be 18 or less.
And principals, you all input, agree, objections, anything? So you guys felt comfortable with what you arrived at?
Okay, and then going to the next slide, this one, phonemic awareness, is what we call, in pre-K, they do initial sounds. So if Miss Witten gives them the word boy, they have to tell her they hear the sound. In ours, if we say car, they have to go k-r. So by them knowing the beginning sound is a very good thing. They're coming 61% to us because we already know they can isolate the beginning sound when it comes to decoding, and they're able to function and now start hearing for the middle and ending sounds. So this is a big aha for us. We're excited about seeing this. And Ms. Coase, I'll let you share.
Again, they came in very low. Middle of the year had decreased some. By the end of the year, it's very pleased with that. And we did those 15% there, so it's the same percent in alphabet knowledge as it is first sound fluency, but it's not the same kids. There are 7 students in this group too with IEPs, but it's not the same 7 as in the other group. So it's just it may be some of the same, but not the exact same. So first sound fluency is something that comes easier to the young students because they don't have to see it. It's just strictly by sound. So developmentally, this is something that they are going to score higher in. It'll come to them first. They're going to get this before they will recognize the letters. So they were very pleased with the results, and then they've got a whole list of things with the MTSS, things they've looked at that they already are talking about next year, putting into place that they think can increase the numbers even more, especially with looking at those students that are at risk, focusing more on the inclusion, the multi-sensory type things they can do in the classroom. And something we've really been looking at lately, and we had just gotten something yesterday, and I had sent it to Ms. Whitten, and she had came to me and was talking about it. It was funny because something came up today with a Head Start, from the Office of Head Start wanting you to look at it, for planning, but play-based literacy activities. And you think about the younger kids, and you walk in the classroom, and a lot of them, that's all people see is play. But it was an example of a child, and they gave some examples, and she said she was watching her 2-year-old grandson. He had nothing in his hand, but it was a sword. And she said they were talking about the connection with their mind. He had a symbol. There was nothing there, but in his mind there was a symbol. And that helps them start to relate a symbol to a sound. And so it starts early, even 2-year-olds with their play and how they're doing it and what we can say when they're doing that. Oh, you got a sword, and the sounds they hear in relation to that. So she's got a lot of ideas already for next year for those students who don't seem quite ready for the academic part. There are still things you can do that may not be the paper in front of them, but that you can do to help them reach these goals.
Another thing is that I'm going to say with them, they did set goals for alphabet knowledge and phonemic awareness. And if you see balloons, that means they met their goal or exceeded their goal. So we're excited about their goal was set at 82 and they actually had 84 on benchmark. So we're excited that they did pass their goal. Okay, now first grade. Oh, she talked about.
Yeah,
You want,
that's
okay.
her.
All right.
Yeah, so what worked, they did the small group time, having targeted students, the lively letters, the MTSS, which we only started after about mid-year, they started that. So continuing those small groups, the consistent intentional practice, the play-based literacy, continuing those MTSS meetings, and then protecting that small group time every day.
So those are things we're looking for. These are things that work. We found it works, and now we know what do we need to start off at the beginning of the year. And so we're set, hopefully, we're going to see results. I know we are. We're going to get to that 80%. So here's the first K-3 data. This is what the state goes and where we will start getting an SPS score. And Ms. Wells may elaborate on this, on how, we don't know how it's going to be calculated right now. But showing this growth at the beginning of the year, just K-3, we had 48%, and that was 187 students. Right now, at the end of the year, we're at 66% and 259 students that are on grade level. We set our goal. We always try to stay 10% from the beginning, so we had it from 48 is where we started. So we set our goal for 58% at the district, and we succeeded that. So we're excited to see that. And that only tells us that once K-3, if those foundational skills for reading are there, it's only going to promote reading and literacy as they go through these ages. They'll be able to read, and that's what our focus is. And then the next one is going to be 4 to 6. These are the grades that is totally different. We have to back up and see what gaps they have. If it's phonics, what areas in phonics that they need, what are the decoding issues, and this is what we actually look at. But seeing this growth, even there, we're closing those gaps, and that's what we're excited to see. We didn't get our goal, but the growth is what we're looking at. And if you've seen last time in March, I showed you each student and how it grows, even though they didn't meet that, but the growth is what we see, and that's what we're excited to see because we are closing those gaps. And then first grade, kindergarten now. This is the kindergarten data, and this is the overall score. And we're excited because they had started off at 25%. That was only 29 kids that came to us on benchmark, ready for kindergarten. Now we have 64, a 60% growth. So we are excited because we had that 35% growth at the beginning of the year. And we're excited about that success. And the way, now I'll let Ms. Smith and Janae, is her interventionist there, and I'll let them elaborate how they got these results.
So Maria, before we go, let me make sure I understand. What's more important, the goal or the growth?
We look at growth. We want to see, but we want them to reach that goal also, closing that gap. It kind of goes together. And because we want them to be able to be proficient in reading, but if that child is not growing, then we've got to do something. We've got to do more. Because as long as it's not growing, that means he's falling further behind.
And Head Start helps.
Yes.
When those kids come in, they've already got that background. So you're.
Well, we talked about that today. Sometimes you're not going to see the literacy data on them showing that, but because they're getting in the language, they're hearing it, the Lena we do and all, because they're building that foundation to get ready for it. Yeah, you don't, because we don't include them in this data, it's just pre-K through 12. So they're being tested on the same thing the pre-K kids are, but a lot of times you don't see that. They're growth, but you're not going to see as much growth because of their age and development level.
They're still babies, but they're being exposed to it. It helps them when they step up.
So Maria, is there an expectation at some point that they reach the goal? Because maybe there's some Caldwells going on, because I'm not understanding.
Right. We want them reading at grade level by third grade. That's our goal.
So there's a...
Right, our third grade, because that's our state goal. We want them ready to read, because what happens is the shift changes from K to 3. K to 2, they're learning to read, but then grades 3 and up, they're reading to learn. So it shifts. And so we want to make sure that they are ready. But grade 3 is where the state says we have to have a reading on grade level. And that's what our goal is, to get them there. And how we can fill the gaps and things that these ladies and their team have done is going to be just astounding, because you're going to see those results. Okay, and then we'll do first grade, you can show them. And then first grade, remember at the beginning of the year, that was, the middle of the year, we were concerned. That was a concern from us. But if you see the red, you see the beginning, the first line, the second line, the middle, and the end. So I wanted to put it this way. Can you see how the blue grew? How the green grew? The yellow got smaller and the red got smaller. So it tells us that we are reaching those kids. These kids will be going to second, but they'll also be receiving intervention from Miss Kelly McElwain and their team to fill in those gaps, to continue to fill in those gaps. And so we're excited about the growth they had. And so the way Grayson wrote their goal is that 80% of their students will meet their individual student goal. And each one they met, they said, how can we get them to where they need to be? And they set their goal. And I'll let Ms. Smith and her team talk about this, or K and 1.
So K and 1's a little different. For kindergarten, we really don't start pushing that intervention until about mid-year. So you're going to see a huge jump normally between middle and end of the year, just because they're starting to get more intervention time. And normally it's, you know, that 30 minutes twice a week in a small group setting. The teachers also, you know, they tweaked their curriculum a little bit to push in more of the skills and phonics, because that's where our kids are in kindergarten and what they need. As far as their small groups, they really dug deep into their data. They dug deep into their curriculum to try to figure out where they could fill those holes. And we really started seeing intentional planning for specific students, like names beside them, activities on what they were going to do, reaching out to parents, you know, sending things home with parents, making them fully aware of what this test entails and what it looks like. So as far as first grade, I did have 3 teachers that decided we need more time. We need more time for our students to grow. So they actually took their 90-minute planning on their own, and they came with my permission and asked if they could bump it back to 60 minutes. So they are only doing it, 3 of the first grade teachers are only doing a 60-minute planning, and they use that extra 30 minutes to do what they call an accelerate time. And it was actually structured a little different. They were sorting their kid by measure. So if they were low in letter naming, or, you know, their OR for CLS, or whatever they were low in, that's how they grouped the students. And they really pushed in and provided intervention. A lot of them were doing progress monitoring on their own versus just waiting for us to do the progress monitoring. At our time, they sat into MTSS meetings every day in common planning. I heard them up and down the hall trying to figure out how to grow these students, because they were heartbroken middle of the year for first grade. I can tell you that they were heartbroken, and so they were determined to have that end of the year percent higher, and so they worked hard. Miss Janae, I mean, she helped the teachers. They, you know, they did everything they could to grow those students. I even had our instructional coach, Erica, pushed in. I mean, she pushed into several kindergarten teachers' classrooms that needed some support. But Janae, do you want to share anything else?
It took the entire school, it took us all, and the teachers got buy-in from the parents, and that was a great big help, that they would help at home, and we just have such a good school environment, that we really had such a push, and they really made me proud. These students made me so proud.
Janae, I'm glad you said that the parents bought in. What did you guys do that you think was successful? Because in the past, we've always had the issue with, you know, parents buying in, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm not speaking for them, me personally, because I know that to get a parent to come is like pulling a tooth. So to get them to come, was it something special that you did, or it was just they felt comfortable? Or
I think our teachers that we have are very comfortable to reach out to the parents, and the parents are very comfortable talking to those teachers, so they let them know, and then at the ending, they were just very honest that this is very important. This is a test, because tests, they understand tests in class, and that's important to them. But I think maybe this, it wasn't important, like at the beginning of the school and the ending of the school. You know, it wasn't important, it wasn't a grade, so it wasn't important. But towards the ending, when the teachers explained what this is, it really became a buy-in, and they want the best for their children.
You think the parent feeling that they were important part of the process, played a role?
And I think too, explaining to the parents what the test looked like and how they were tested, that it is time for a minute, and their pacing is very important, then parents were able to help their kids at home. It wasn't just flash and flashcards, it's like, okay, you have a minute. And so once the parents understood how they were tested, I think that really helped. We also did, and Erica really coordinated this, was the pep rally that we did. And I mean, we invited everybody and parents, and they had posters just like they were doing LEAP. You know, I mean, they were cheering them on, so you had buy-in for the parents. They wanted their kids to do good. They wanted them to be successful. And the kids knew, you know, this is important to me, it's important to my family and my school family, and so they really, I mean, you should have seen them coming out of those, whenever they got through testing, like, oh, do good, or how you grade, or, you know, I mean, so.
I said, if you didn't pull that I hadn't pulled them yet, they were stopping me in the hall. Are you getting me? Are you getting me? Am I gonna test next? We just had a buy-in from everybody.
So you thinking that the parent has a sense that there was a genuine, authentic relationship coming from this side and everybody intertwined, working toward the same goal? Because if that's the case, then that should produce some success. Because most of the time, parents will say whatever it is that they want to say over here may or may not be true, but their perception is their reality. So if you guys are creating a bond, I think that's a pathway that we haven't seen in a while.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, this year, and I can say this, just this week is Teacher Appreciation, I have not seen the turnout that we've had this year in a very long time. And I have been very impressed with our businesses, our community, you know, our parents, grandparents. I mean, we had, I don't know, at least 3 to 4 parents, grandparents, just friends come in and sit in the classroom yesterday so our teachers could have a moment of lunch together. And you don't get that very often. So, and we haven't always had that. So we have really worked hard to build a good community, you know, in our school, and I think that's part of it.
So that email I received today from Ms. Parent about you wasn't true. No, but that, Nick, I'm glad to hear that, because 6 superintendents with you, that's been a struggle. And to hear that 30 years later is, it's like maybe something has happened that happened in the past. Best of luck. Hope that, you know, it'll continue to grow, because I know if those parents feel comfortable with the school, they usually perform better. And hats off.
I went to the pepper rally. They had the high school cheerleaders there. They had, like she said, posters, parents. I thought we was gonna break a sound barrier. Those kids were so excited. They were jumping up and down. It was really neat.
And what was neat was when the kids were coming out, we'd go in, because we have a district team that goes in, and then Janae's also in the school level team. We'll go in. Well, we go pick a kid, the other kids are cheering up, you got this, you got it, you're going to do great. Just seeing that was just so amazing. And kindergarten, we got this, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And that atmosphere, that culture, didn't grow overnight. It's something that had to be built.
Musical chairs.
Yeah.
They may say yes ma'am, no ma'am, but there was one young girl and she knocked them out.
So now moving on to second grade, we knew second grade was enough focus in the middle of the year. And so if you'll see, I like that chart because you can tell how the blue, the green, and yellow, and how the red got smaller. But they grew from 59% to 61%, which is 57 kids. They grew 10% from the middle of the year. Their goals at 66, but still the growth, they were only 5% away. But the growth that was there, we had kids that were well below moving yellow. So that means that gap is getting smaller. And that's something that going to third grade, we know that's a pivotal year because of the law, and not only because the literacy trend changes from learning to read and read to learn. So that's where we know that we're gonna have to focus again. But knowing we have at least over 50% is amazing, because sometimes we're below that. And then moving to third grade, you'll see, remember third grade they dropped 5% in the middle of the year. And they were just like, oh my goodness, they had dropped. But now they grew to 71%. And we're excited because their goal was 67%. So they exceeded their goal. And I'm going to let Ms. Kilpatrick and her team share that one. They're what?
This year was a huge learning year for us, and we started with a mostly new staff in third grade, and so just kind of took some getting used to. So much has already been said, different things that we've changed mid-year too. I really think the most important piece was the parental involvement. At middle of the year, when we saw those numbers, it was like somberness. We were all like, oh my gosh. And we all sat down and put our minds to it. The biggest thing was the parents just don't understand. So they're not pushing it. They're not helping the children understand the importance of it. I think beginning of year to middle of year, Dibble's testing was just something that we did. And the kids didn't really understand the importance behind it. They just went and took the test, and the parents didn't. So when we at middle of year, when we got those results, the teachers called in and asked to meet with every parent of a child that was well below, and they met them however they could, whether it was in person, which is what they really requested, and we had a very good turnout for that. If the parents couldn't, they said we can meet by Google Meet, we can meet by phone. One of them met at the ball field. So just however you can meet, we want to meet. And sat down with them, showed them their child's results, showed them, what the targets were, and then exactly what they could do at home to help their students. And then they just sent home the materials week after week after week, and we're very faithful with that. And we put out videos to show them, to show the parents what does it look like on our end when we're testing your child for a 1-minute timing. This is what it looks like. This is what nonsense words are for, and just kind of helped educate what the purpose of nonsense words were for. And I think for a while we still had some unsureness of uncertainty of how does nonsense words affect true reading. But as we kept sending this home, and as they saw their students' scores growing, because we did a lot of progress monitoring in third grade especially, then the parents, you could tell the buy-in was coming, and they were like, okay, so tell me again what the nonsense words are for, and we're working on them, but I want to make sure I'm doing them right. And so it was very, very refreshing to hear that from the parents' side. And I know that right before, we also did a parade right before Dibble's testing, and kind of drummed up the excitement around it and the importance of it, get a good night's rest and like that. And we had parents call and say, hey, he's not going to be there at 7:40, but I promise to have him there by 8 o'clock. And in the past we never had that. So the parents definitely understood, I think, the importance of it, and I feel like that to us was the biggest thing. Miss McElwain, I can't shout her praises enough. She took it very personally and was like, I've got to get in there. And so she put together a packet for the teachers. She went in and modeled for the teachers, especially the new ones, exactly what does Dibble's testing look like, how does she help with them in her classroom, so that they can transfer that to how they help in their classrooms. And then she gave them the materials and said, I have more of where this come from, you just let me know. And they were constantly going back and forth, hey, do you have this, do you have this, what do you think about this passage, does it look similar to what you're doing? Another thing second grade teachers did was they started modeling their spelling test and some of their vocabulary on their test after what the maze looked like, because we noticed that was a big weakness for second grade. And so they just changed the format of their test so that it's still assessing the same material, but it looked like the maze, so that hopefully when they got to the maze piece that was causing them so much trouble, it was just something that they were doing. I know I'm missing a lot.
Amazed the whole school.
Yeah, they tested the whole school.
And then we're only seeing it 3 times a year,
Yeah.
so we're like, that's not enough.
And it was all hands on deck. There was not one person in my building that did not participate. You know, when we met at TCPs, the paras are involved in that. And they all were like, okay, what can we do? And, we had paras that moved to the literacy lab. And so all third graders, regardless of their level, were worked with in their literacy lab. And, going down the hallway, there were words posted down the halls as they were going to the bathrooms. The teachers were having them read off the words and having them sound that out. We did a bulletin board outside the bathrooms for a couple of the classes, you know. I mean, we just tried every possible thing we could do. Kelly, what am I missing?
I think you said it.
I did tutor in the mornings a couple of students. Kelly took her planning time, about the first 30 minutes of her planning, and tutored. Miss Baker stayed after school with a couple of students a couple of times and helped tutor, and that was parent request. You know, so I really think the parents are understanding the importance of it now. And, you know, it's something new that just started last year, but I think, you know, with the law being what it is, I think that the parents are understanding, okay, this is definitely something we need to focus on and, you know, at least try to help out at home. And I think they're doing a good job. The teachers are doing an excellent job.
And they are. One thing I will say, when you see some of the red, it's not, attendance is still an issue, because if they're not at school, we can't provide that support. So we are, so some of that red you're gonna find in all the grade levels, K to 6. Either they're being checked out before they can get intervention, or they're checking out of their ELA course, or being absent. So that's still an issue that we're still having in that area. In 4th and 5th, we'll look at 4th grade.
Hold on, Maria.
Yes.
Listen, I'm not gonna ask you the question, because people think I'm gonna ask you a question. But there's a motive behind it. I'm gonna give a state. I did get a chance to meet with you, and I can see that you're very much excited, which tells me that you're comfortable doing what you're doing. You feel like you're able to do what needs to be done. So hats off to you and Columbia. So whatever it is that you guys are doing with regards to the relationship with the parents, I'm liking that. And I think the board should like that, because that's been a hindrance for multiple years to get parents to feel comfortable getting, for whatever reason. It doesn't matter now. They're coming, and that's a good thing. So hopefully whatever you guys are doing, feed them, you know, hot dogs or whatever. If you can get them there and get a relationship with a parent, it's 50% completed. But if they're not coming and they look at you as the enemy, you got help. So if they're coming, hats off to Columbia Grayson thus far.
And also, like the red, you know, of course, we don't want to see any red at the end of the year. But that doesn't mean that the kids that started in the red and finished in the red didn't grow any. So, you know, you still, not every child's going to learn the same, not every child's going to learn at the same pace, but we still want to celebrate those wins, even though, you know.
And red is red, but you're not seeing where they are in relation to the yellow. They may be right there.
Very close.
Right, 2 or 3 points away.
I had, I had 5 kids that was 1 point away from being benchmark.
And also what we're noticing, Nick is not saying anything, and you guys are talking, which is a great thing, because maybe Clifton is doing different things. It's good that you guys are giving us feedback. So obviously, what you guys have put together, Nick, is taking, it's cultivated, and it's doing what needs to be done. Because the only thing I'm gonna hold is if you're giving me this, when we get these test scores, I'm gonna be looking for something different.
Well, what we're saying, we're teaching them to read, and that's what our district is gonna look at for next year. If it doesn't match up, we know they can read. So what is happening with LEAP? Is it the format? Is it the vocabulary? Now we'll dig in deeper, because they can read. We know they can. So now, what is it about LEAP that we need to adjust? Is it the assessment? The assessments we're given. So things that we're starting to do at the district level, planning for next year, once we get those results, we're gonna dig in deeper.
Y'all look so
Always.
positive.
Maria, I actually, I think this program is awesome, and I really believe that without reading, there's nothing.
That's right.
And because I think that every class that we take, that we teach, with the exception of math, and it is extremely important in math as well, that if you can read, you can learn.
That's right.
And I really like this. Now, I do have a couple questions.
Okay.
One, who sets the benchmark?
The state
The
does.
state sets the benchmark. And is that benchmark on grade level?
It is, according to what they
So
give us.
when you say benchmark, you are
That's
talking
grade level.
about grade level.
Level. If they're in the green, that's grade level.
Okay.
If they're blue, they're even above
So
that
that's
grade
not
level.
some fictitious number that you come up with out of the blue. See, I think Johnny ought to be this. This is state oriented?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
I already knew the answer to that, but everybody here will know that the benchmark and the grade level,
Yes.
that's what the benchmark
Yes,
means.
right.
So my next question is, I really, how long has this program been going on? How long have you been doing this?
My fourth year.
Say that again?
It's my fourth year.
Your fourth year. So by the time these kids that are fourth graders get to high school, our score's gonna be way up.
We are looking for that.
So my next question is, I see you've implemented seventh grade.
Right.
Are we gonna implement eighth grade?
That's something we just received a grant on.
Because I think that's important.
Right, it is.
Because, you know, your ultimate goal is,
Yes.
okay, let's don't be ahead of the game at halftime. Well, let's be ahead of the game at the end of the fourth quarter.
Right.
So for me, the fourth quarter is when they get to the junior and senior year and they're taking ACT tests and they're trying to graduate, whether they go to college or whether they go to whatever they decide to do in their life. But that's my thing, because I think I can take any kid and take him offshore or to a pipeline or whatever it is he's doing. And if he can read the material, he can climb all the way to the top. So I really like what you guys are doing. It's extremely important. The growth is outstanding. I thank you for putting the numbers on there because I'm a numbers person. So hats off to all y'all.
They're amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned ACT because actually when we looked at data, Ms. Wells and I got together, okay, what do we need to do at the ninth grade level? So we're constantly looking at data. How can we improve our students? So that's what we're
Get
all
to
looking
100% in benchmark. I'm gonna take you to eat steak. Okay?
Well, this team, y'all heard that.
You know what?
We're not gonna take it off, but we're a team.
Hey, Mr. Vans will have to kick in.
We're a team.
This is recorded. You sure it's recorded, brother?
Okay, and then moving to fourth grade, this is Central Union Central. And you will see that they've been growing. They're that small grade, but you gotta realize these are the kids that had a gap. But what's exciting is that we're filling them now. And you can see the blue, the green, the yellow, the red is going little, but some of those are kids that are still struggling with the basic foundations. And we're constantly, Ms. Ainsworth, is what she does, and even in the classrooms, they work with those skills and making sure they're getting there. So they even grew. They wanted 52%, but they got 50. They were almost there. But the growth, we look at that growth. And the students grow, like Ms. Bass said, that if you looked at that kid that's in the red, you would see where they started at the beginning and where they are now. It's amazing, that growth. And then fifth grade, moving to fifth grade, you'll see also they had their growth. Their goal was 42% to be on benchmark because they started at 34. They're at 51. So they even succeeded or exceeded their end of the year goal. So I will let Ms. Gregory and Ms. Ainsworth.
Well, I want to go back when you said, like what Ms. Bass said, the fourth grade, when I looked at all of them, I looked at the individual kids and all of those red, every one of them except one had over 100 points growth. So even though they're still in the red, they grew over 100 points.
Because the standard changes. In a year, it may be like 395. Middle of the year, may be 400. The end of the year may be even higher, so it keeps going up. So in March, you actually got to see those benchmark goals that I had on that slide, and it told you exactly where they had to be according to the state.
So, I mean, as far as fourth grade, I just wanted to point that out because we do still have a lot in the red. However, there was a lot of growth there.
It is.
When you got a student in the red and you got a student in the blue in the same classroom, I know it's gotta be hard. Are you giving that student in the blue something extra to read, to work on, to keep them occupied so they don't get bored while you're waiting?
During their accelerate time, they do have different things that pushes them further. And that's, if you see, I know it's slight growth, but that blue is growing and it's a little different in fifth grade too, because they did something completely different that I'll talk about. But, so during their curriculum, you know, we use the guidebooks right now. We have to give every kid the same curriculum. So, they have to. That's just what we have to do. However, after they've had that time, we pull those small groups, accelerate time or intervention time. If they're below, they're getting whatever it is that they need at that time. And then our higher students are getting something to push them ahead.
I'm a reader. I want to be.
So, and like I said, so fifth grade, if you notice that group in the blue, that is something that we've struggled with because we are always focused on those kids that are below. What can we do to push them ahead? We want to pull them up. So those that are our higher kids, we don't challenge them as much, and it's been harder to get more blue in the past. Those advanced, translates to lead, and well above for dibbles. And so a little after mid-year, our fifth grade teachers, we had 2 of our 3 that they were like, you know, Miss Maria presented something and we want to try this, and they completely changed what they were doing.
They're doing their center
Yeah,
stuff.
during their center stop. And I actually got her to letter report, and I was like, well, you just look at these teachers, not that the other ones were anything wrong, but they were like, we want to try this, and it showed so much more growth for what they were doing. So as far as like pushing our higher kids along.
Well, what it did was it involved the higher kids. It was a strategy that she gave at an in-service where she would have the really good readers, the ones who were already green and blue, in their groups. They would read a passage while the other ones silently followed along. And then they read it together, and then they timed the ones who were red and yellow who needed, who were working in interventions.
That was my whole reason for the restructure.
And
Those kids
And
could help
so-
the others.
Right.
And that's what they did though, is that gave them such a sense of, of being needed or whatever, and, ownership, responsibility, that they just took it and ran with it. And so by having them do all that extra reading, of course, it helps improve their own oral reading, so.
Because y'all asked for it, y'all were like, we've got to get these kids together,
Right.
and it's making a difference.
It is.
It
It
is.
really is.
Thank y'all.
Yes.
And we changed some with our curriculum as well before the fifth, because we recognize that our curriculum that we use does not allow for the reading time, the oral reading that they should get in order to be fluent readers. But again, following that state curriculum, it's what we're told to do. So we're still following it, but we just made adjustments to it to give them more time. And even our teachers, like for social studies and science, made adjustments so that they could have more oral reading in class as well.
What about your parent involvement?
Come on now.
Ours, when we did our, I was gonna say, as far as the dibbles, we didn't have anything like after mid-year to do as far as like pollen and everything. However, we did our literacy night, we did set up individual little stations for each of the, like the maze and the org and different things, so that the teachers presented what it was, how it was timed, and just, like, so they would see it. I mean, they literally sat there and did it with, the ones that came sat there and did it with the kids. So I wish more people would have come. We didn't have as big of a turnout, as I would have hoped. But the ones that came, I feel like it was very beneficial for them.
They got a lot of positive feedback from
We
it, because
did.
they were like, oh, because just like what we've heard the other 2 principals mention is that they don't realize the importance of even the nonsense. Why they gotta go to nonsense words? Because if they can decode a nonsense word, then they can decode a real word, and so,
So you talk about nonsense words, so what are y'all talking about?
like BAF, BAF.
It's not a real word, it's nonsense.
Oh, okay.
But it tells us if they can connect sound to things, like if they have the word mag, M-A-G, they have to say mag, because if you think it's part of magnet, magnificent. So that's why it builds, we use those nonsense words because it tests their phonics skills, because it is a word part. If you separate that word into syllables, it is a word part to another word. So once they learn that, then when they see mag and magnet, they'll say, oh, that's mag. This is net, magnet. Mag along may not be it's a nonsense word, but it's a part of a word when you put it with magnet. So that's the science behind the nonsense words.
Maria,
That makes sense.
Melissa, let me ask you and Grace, since you guys are having, good parent participation and you're the lower grades and they're going to her, what is that you guys maybe can offer, coexist, help her? Because it's going to be the same parents. So if you already have a relationship with those parents, is there a way that maybe you can kind of couple all that together to kind
I mean,
of?
I'm not saying that we don't, we have parent participation, we have a lot of it.
We've had a great teacher appreciation week with the parent involvement. I'm just like, oh my
We
gosh.
could flooded with it, and we have great, like, our teachers communicate well. We have dojo, every
What's
teacher.
dojo?
It's how we communicate with parents. Every class is connected. They post, messages, reminders, they'll put their newsletters in there as well. I mean, they can ask questions and the teachers respond. So all they have to do is connect. Yes. I think they can do their email and their cell phone number, but cell phone, it's on their app, on their phone. But that's the primary way that most of our teachers communicate.
I want to point out something else too, though. Having come from a high school background too, and going down from, I've been at middle school and I've been at elementary now. And what I perceive that part of the problem could be, I feel like parents are less involved the older their kids get. And so, and I mean, I don't know, junior high and high school, you might can attest to that, or maybe y'all have great parent involvement, I don't know, but I'm just saying that it seems like everything drops off a little bit as you go up.
I think they feel a little more
Independent.
they're not needed quite as much, maybe.
They don't help them.
And if they're used to doing it now, starting with Belinda, as they move up, it's gonna be a habit.
That's what I was
Yeah, you would think.
The
You would
input I
think
was
that
gonna-
from K1 that they have good participation, that good participation could go to 2, 3.
But I
That
would
good
say,
participation would go to 4, 5.
when we were K-5, we would have great participation, K-1, 2,
Yeah.
and then it just started to,
It falls off.
it falls off. So, I mean, that's just,
And it may be the independence thing, like you said, they feel like they're more independent, they don't need me as much.
They're not babies.
Well, and the parents aren't checking the folders as much because they kind of expect your children at that age.
Right.
I guess the input I could give there would be, they've become used to it this year, and they really appreciated it, I think. So I think if we could just continue that momentum, and they already do a lot of things that we do, the only thing different I would maybe suggest would be those personal phone calls. That seem to really be the key for us. After the testing, especially if their children didn't do so well, the parents seem to really appreciate that personal phone call to say, hey, your child didn't do so well, but here's how we're helping them, and here's how we would like for you to work at home. So,
And I'm not saying that they don't have great relationships, but I just know, I mean, like, I'm just speaking for Grayson, like the teachers at our school, they're very personable with their parents. I mean, they will send them happies, they will send them pictures of their kids, look what they did today, I'm so proud of them. So I think it's just that open relationship. I mean, a lot of the parents have the teachers' cell phones. That's not something I told them to do, but that's just how comfortable they are and how much they care for their students in their classrooms, that they want their parents to be able to reach out to them anytime they need, help, or I have a question for homework, or, anything like that. And this year, we've really opened our school up to parents. Like, we've had a lot of, events and a lot of times where parents could volunteer, and we've asked them to come, and I think sometimes parents want to be wanted, so, I mean, it is a little bit different for the lower grades than it is for the upper. They want to see what's going on, because maybe their kiddos, they go home and like, what'd you have for lunch? I don't know. They don't know what they did all day, so I think it is a little different.
And I'll say this, that we use the class dojo, all of our teachers use that, and in fact, it helps for the teachers to, in the moment even, they'll send a dojo message during class or whatever when they can't stop and make a phone call during class, and they'll get a response back from the parents. We have a lot of parent communication through Class Dojo, and Baron, if you want me to, I can show you the app and what it looks like. It's pretty neat. It's kind of like almost like a Facebook for school, because you have a feed where Ms. Rushing is always putting information out there for when our upcoming events are, but also you can private message a particular parent, through there, or you can do a blast message, and they're, because I'll hear the teachers even talking about it in the lounge. Yeah, I sent us a message on Dojo, and they got right back to me and told me this or that, and even to help nip problems in the classroom. You know, they'll have it all figured out before the end of the school day when they would normally used to, you know, make a phone call home, so.
And they can
I
reach
love
out
it.
to any teacher
Oh, that's
any
true,
parent
too.
that's connected can reach out to any teacher at school.
And they
So
do.
I've had parents message me, you know, about students, so it's not just their own teacher, it's any.
Right.
I think it's important to understand in the mentality of a lot of people, especially in my generation, and some younger than in my generation too, is that it's hard for some people because they have that mental image of when they were in school. When you got sent to the principal's office and you had to talk to the principal, you were in trouble.
Right.
So principals intimidating to the older generation, and a lot of these children are being raised by their grandparents.
You're right.
So the intimidation factor is still there in a lot of these parents. So I think it's really important that they understand that a principal is open to them and can talk to them at any time without any kind of negative feedback.
I don't know that
Very
I'm that
important.
intimidating at school, to be honest, because I get hugs all day long through the hallway and in and out of the classroom, so
Well,
that
I'm
part.
talking
But
about
hey,
the
adults,
parents.
yeah.
I'm talking about getting the
Oh,
parents to be
adults, yeah,
involved.
adults.
I'm
I
talking
got
about
you.
getting the adults involved. I'm not talking about the kids.
kids,
I'm talking about getting their grandparents and their parents
I got you.
involved. Because it's hard for them to get involved because that was what they were raised with, you know. You got
You
to the
didn't wanna go
principal's
to
office,
school.
it was intimidating. You got a whooping.
Yeah.
Ms. Gregory, you can talk to Nikki tomorrow, because I've already texted my reason for asking. Because sometimes there are underlying issues that exist that may be comfortable or uncomfortable with regards to parent participation, getting involved. But as long as we're aware of that, we can kind of touch it, you know, wherever we go, and she's aware of that, and I'm quite sure Maria as well, so hopefully that'll help you out. But I think if, like Randy's saying, if the first, second, and third grade can kind of assist, you know, because the relationship is already there, they can say, well, you know, Miss Gregory's not a mean person, whatever the case may be, you can go and talk to, because that's what I try to do. I try to dissolve any perception that they may have. That's why it's always important for me to get to know the person that I'm dealing with, so I can either agree with it or disagree with it, but I have to know that. And I think the more familiar a person become with you, it works out. But again, if it's already at the elementary level, it should be able to, it ain't that easy, we know, but if they can just kind of step up the stone, it may be better. But again, they may not be interested, you know, that may be, you know, the issue. It has nothing to do with what the school is doing. It just may be their perception that they're older, I don't need to be involved. I don't know.
And it's not all, we still have some
Right.
parents that are very involved.
Well, I'll say when we have our book fairs, we have a morning, one day event, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, it's me. Because the kids will be like, you know, they bring their parent or their grandparent or aunt or whoever, and to come shop with them. Of course, they get to buy more that way, but I mean, you know, I think we have some of our best sales when we have our parent or grandparent day, because it's amazing.
And
So
it may
they
be something.
like coming.
It may be something when they have the end of the year awards day, they can put a plug in, okay, you're leaving us, but we're handing you, first grade, we're handing you Miss Kilpatrick. She's gonna be just amazing, she's gonna be reaching out, she's gonna care for you, and I'm gonna check in to see how you're doing. And then Miss Kilpatrick with her third grade, hey, I'm handing you to Miss Gregory in their school. So I want, you know, so she's their open door policy, so that's something they can do now that we're about to do the end of the year awards and graduation, you know, different things. So she's passing it on to Miss Hillstead to sixth grade, her fifth graders to sixth grade.
One thing I can say is, between elementary, junior high, and high school, I mean, even if I have a parent that comes to me and says, I'm really nervous about going to Columbia, you know, nothing to do with Melissa, I'm just really nervous about going to Columbia. I mean, I always try to reassure them, you know, you're in great hands. I'm very good friends with Melissa, you know, you are gonna be in great hands. She's very open, you can go talk to her at any time, so I mean, I think it means a lot too, coming from the principal that maybe they're leaving or the school that they're leaving, go into just that reassurance as well.
And I
Here's
try
somebody
to,
they trust.
I try to ask specifically, well, what are you most nervous about? And usually it's I don't know the teacher, or I don't, and so I always try to find positive. I worked with a lot of those teachers at summer camp, and so I can say, well, I've worked with her before, and this is one good thing that we know about her. She's excellent at this, or you know, just something that I can find that I could help ease their mind. So I think we all to a different degree, you know, support each other in that.
When I say we're a team, we're a team.
Yeah, I think a lot of grandparents are just, they've accepted responsibility and they don't know what all it entails. And then when they have to reach these benchmarks, it's kind of complicated, because the majority of that I talk to, when I ask them, have you talked to the school yet, it's always their perception of what you might have told them, or somebody else's reality that may be totally different than theirs. So for them to become familiar, it's kind of difficult. So I don't think it's anything that the school may or may not be doing. I think it's just something we need to kind of tap into and see what we can do to entice them to come and realize that it's important. It could be a good experience, because I know when they meet different ones and they develop a relationship, when I see them after the fact, oh yeah, we get along fine, with the situation we did with the parent last summer, no issue, but they had to come to meet to get to where they are now. But had it not happened, we still would have the same issue. So I don't know what you can do, but.
We're working. All right, looking at our 6th grade, you'll see theirs is also, we use this same data system for them. We don't do it for 7th and 8th, but we're looking at different ways we can for coming years due to a grant. But if you look, even they grew. They were at 38% beginning of the year, but now they're at 59%. Their goal was at 67. The reason we moved it, their goal was 57, but because they were at the middle of the year, 57, we wanted that growth. But if you look at it, even at 38%, she would have actually met her goal, because now it should have been 48%. So she would have already met that goal. So we're excited about the growth that they're doing there. And then I'm going to show you the 7th grade. Even though we had some decline, we're not working with every 7th grader. These are the kids that we were tracking. But look at their growth. I wanted you to see where they started. The blue is where they started. The red is the middle of the year, and the yellow is the end of the year. And this is just 4 of the 6 classes that are there. But if you will see the growth, and some of these kids are kids with disabilities, and they're even growing. And that's one thing we noticed in MTSS. We were like, but this is a child with disabilities. He's growing. That's what's amazing, because we're trying to reach everyone, every kid that we can work with. And I'll let Katie and.
I mean, I'm super happy with the major growth that we had in the 6th grade. And we talked about that in the middle of the year, how much they grew and how many kids, I mean, I just looked, it doubled from the beginning of the year to the end of the year with the amount of above benchmark. And so they've been working super hard, and I'll call her Dr. Denise today, because I said, I'm gonna let you figure out how to fix, you know, some of the issues that we have, so, go ahead and talk.
I mean, of course, I have a lot to say, y'all know that, but I wanted to bounce off of some of the questions that Bo had, Baron had, Maria stated. Bo, when I got into this 3 years ago, and y'all are looking at these charts and you're looking at all the red, okay? In my 52 students in 6th grade, we have a low number. We only have 9 with IEPs, but we have a lot with 504 plans. Then when you look at my 7th grade scores, we have 17, I think it is, with IEPs, and then we have a lot with 504 plans. So will we ever, I'm not saying we cannot, will we ever see the red completely go away? I have a student that I progress monitor on a kindergarten level. But when you see these 3, beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, I have to test them on their grade level, so 6th grade. So I may be teaching him skills all day long. Kindergarten, I have 1st grade, I have 2nd grade, I have 3rd grade, 4th and 5th, because we start where they're at, okay? So the red, he might have started only reading 5 words in 1 minute. But then when we had our meeting yesterday and we see this growth and he's reading 25 words in 1 minute, he's still going to get that praise from me, just like if you moved from green to blue or yellow to blue. Because he has an IEP, he has special needs. We teach him at a kindergarten level during my 30-minute timing with them, so we saw an increase. So I think, Baron, you had asked her about the growth. what's the difference, okay? Well, the difference is, it took me 3 years, Maria has pressed this in my mind. It took me 3 years to realize my SLTs depend on this, but at the same time, if I look and I say, oh man, I didn't reach my goal, well, guess what? I might not have brought them from red to yellow, or yellow to green, or green to blue, but they increased in where they were at and did not fall. The little boy with the 5 words that come up to 25, you know, he did have room to fall, but he did not fall, he came forward. So that kind of bounced off of, are we gonna completely get rid of all the red? I mean, we would love to say that, but we're getting kids in the 6th grade that are still functioning, and we're having to do, like she said, the nonsense words, or car, what sounds do you hear in car? And they're having to say, car. Can you imagine sitting in a 6th grade classroom, and that's what level you're functioning at? That would be like us sitting in a Chinese classroom or something, you know? And so, yes, we're gonna see a lot of growth in the red and the green and the blue. I, at our level, think that sports, when sports starts coming about in the fall, we see a little decline in the middle of the year. When sports happen in the spring, decline, because those students that we couldn't fix their schedule to where they didn't have 7th and 8th hour English. They had it at the beginning of the year. I mean, we did some schedule changes, and we saw even growth with that, because they wasn't at the end of the day and missing their classes to have to leave early for track or football or basketball or whatever their sport was. So we've looked at, you know, scheduling changes. When did the child have the ELA? We've done all of that with them. But I have to say, I don't have all this parent participation like they do as far as coming to the school. So I wanted to read this because I just got it last night. Within the last 2 weeks, my priority was to take our cards. We have these positive postcards that they put in our boxes, and they try to tell us, hey, try to send out 2 a week. Well, no, I sent out about 85 to 90, I think around 92. After I got them all counted, was a lot of stamps. I know my secretary hated me for this, but I sent out that many postcards. And so as of yesterday, one of these boys is in 8th grade, but I had him in 5th and 6th, because that's when I used to go to Central, and I was doing 2 schools at one time. And so I had him, and now he's in 8th, and I don't see him anymore because we don't have anything implemented for 8th. And then the other one is in 6th grade this year, and she said, we received your postcard today. Thank you for putting so much support and encouragement into my boys over the years. You have been wonderful to them and helped them so much. Thank you. So it was a simple postcard. And then I started getting either text messages, phone calls, or that was a message on Facebook. So yes, to the green and the blue, we're very proud of our growth, but the reds that you're going to see, who was it, Monica, I think, was able to tell you specific numbers. You know, she knows 9 of her red are the children with IEPs or 504. I don't have that data on me, so I couldn't tell you the exact numbers. But 7th grade, we track them, and I push in and I work with them in small group time also. But we test that whole group just to kind of see, like she said that they mazed the whole school. We mazed the whole 7th grade just because we wanted to know where they fell and what we need to do better for next year. So we're hoping that the 7th grade literacy rolls over. I've been in 2 classes within this last few weeks, and literally one class didn't hear the other class asked me, and a little girl said, Miss Kelly, are you going to 8th grade with us? And I was like, I don't know, there's not enough time in the day. I already switched classes 12 times a day, and so there's just not enough time. And so then in another class, like 4 days later, a little boy said, are you coming to 8th grade with us? And I was like, I don't know what we're doing for 8th grade. And so yesterday I mentioned to them, I was like, okay, kids are asking like, what about 8th grade, you know? And so they don't even know what's going on at the high school already, but there is something that we need to work on or whatever for 8th grade. But we're hoping to see an improvement in 7th grade after these 6th graders, you know, continue this process.
Mr. President, I I lied to Maria, I told her it's gonna be an hour meeting.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get through.
Denise, I got a response to what you said, but I'm not gonna do it, because I don't wanna be no longer than we have to, so, I'm sorry. I lied.
I have one last thing. I forgot about this. We had such a big growth that I called Maria and I was just like, Maria, like your child witnessed this in the classroom. Yeah, Maria Bass. Your child witnessed this in the classroom today, and a boy had never been benchmarked in his whole whatever, since we've been doing dibbles. And when I showed him his scores, because I sit down with mine individually, and I show them, because if they don't go home, like you said, to a parent that cares or to a parent that knows what this data is, they don't have a clue. And so I sit down and I go over their scores with them. This little boy got up from the table and ran around the room saying, I got benchmark, I've never had benchmark. And her son was like, yay, you got benchmark, and like called the little kid's name. So they were cheering each other on. So I reached out to her. I said, I don't have the funds, but my kids have grown so much, I want to do a celebration. So she came to our school, and I don't know if she reached out to some of you board members or not, and to the community, and she helped me supply pizza for all of them and ice cream for all of them, and they didn't care. I gave out tickets. They didn't care if they got a red ticket, blue ticket, yellow ticket, or green ticket, because they was tickled to death that we were getting pizza or ice cream. And then I set goals, what you had to do to get red, which is, lowest, but that student that was at 5 and he was 25, he got rewarded. And then the yellow tickets, the green tickets, and the blue tickets, they didn't care. They all come busting out those doors. I told her, I said, could you video when they come out both sides? Because they just come running out there. They were tickled to death.
And
So we've already had...
Homeland Bank provided all
Okay. So we've already had our end of the year celebration just because I wanted to celebrate them right then. I didn't want to wait till the end of the year.
So, Miss Denise, the other 6 of us have a problem because you reached out to one.
The reason I reached out to her is because her son is
We
in the
take that
class.
personal now. We do take that personal.
Okay.
No, I'm just playing.
Next time I will make
I'm
a
just
group
playing.
text.
And I actually texted her and I just said, did JT happen to say anything about what happened in his hour today? And she was like, well, I'm not home yet, but I'm going to see when I get home. So I just want to know, did he share his excitement at home the way he showed it in the
And
classroom?
It really did make my day to see all those kids celebrate each other and themselves, and I mean, they loved it. They were trading ice cream for pizza, and I mean, it was just the best day. It really did make my day.
And we're moving on to 9th grade. We do the roar, but their window closes tomorrow, and so I don't have that data. But I wanted to show you the T9, Ms. Fisher, the growth in writing. The student number 1 kid, that's what he wrote in August of 2024. Yes, we still have some issues, but look, and I'm thinking, getting these kids to write is amazing. And this is student 1. We have student 2. Look at the difference between when they came in August and where they are now. Writing is difficult, but for her to work with them and to get them to this stage in the 9th grade, it tells what progress that we're doing even with 9th grade. And then student 3, just look at where they've come. I'm going to let Ms. Fisher talk a little bit about this one.
Well, I also have a problem with parent involvement because by high school, they're done. But I did have some good parent involvement. I've reached out to several of my parents, more than 5, 6, but whenever I've called them, they've been very appreciative. Because they always immediately assume when I call from high school, what did they do? And when they realized that it wasn't a what did they do, it was, oh, they're doing great, or how can I help your child? How do you know, what do you know about your child that I can use to help your child? And then some I've called and given them the good news of, hey, they did really well on this test, or they really, did well on writing. And the ROAR scores, which we're waiting for the end of the year, I gave them a challenge mid-year, and I had all but I think 3 of my students meet their goal that I set for them. So yes, they got pizza from Ms. Fisher.
Well, next time you need to reach out.
My group's a little smaller, at least right now.
Well, hey, look, Randy can make Kubi on it.
Very good.
him to do it for the entire board.
But I have to say, I have a lot of support from Maria. She's my encourager. And Mr. Amos has been wonderful to help me out, and he is the data guru. Because we've sat down as a group of English teachers together at the high school and gone through that data and made adjustments throughout the year of what we need to do. Working on vocabulary, working on different writing strategies. So we are using the data that we have. It's just we don't have as much information for our ninth graders as they do for their lower grades.
She really does the pre-teaching, one of the strategies that we do. So she pre-teaches what the teachers are going to be doing in their class. So when these kids go to them, they have exposure to it, and they know, and they're not afraid to raise their hand and talk about what they've learned. So they're not hearing it firsthand, they've already heard it from Ms. Fisher.
And they are so much more confident. They went into LEAP being very confident. And I had many of them tell me, oh, that was so easy. That was just great. But that was no problem, which I'm hoping it shows in it. 100% guaranteed.
Nikki, just remember, Rhonda, Sandra, and Janae, my classmate, I want to remind you.
And so this is all the work. This is not even a base of everything, but it shows you it takes a team. And we do have a team. You have teachers presenting. We're going back sharing knowledge, meeting, but it's everybody. And I'm going to give a big thank you to all these ladies and gentlemen that's helped out.
Thank you. So, now we're moving on to,
I'm making a motion and y'all can leave if y'all.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, James.
Dave, I got a proposal that from now on, you're gonna be sitting somewhere here, like at other board places.
That sounds good.
The CFO is gonna be sitting somewhere on his desk, because you need to be in at all times.
what we're moving on to is a transition. We'll be talking about the transition from our annual school bus purchases to a leasing option. Now, this is, from what I understand, just for 25, 26. It's not a permanent thing. But it's also part, I want to add, that it's also part of the reduction of our budget, getting our budget under. This is also part of that. So if you would, go ahead and talk about this.
Well, when I came on 3 years ago, we were in desperate need of getting new buses on the line, and the Transportation Committee, based on my recommendation, they made the recommendation to the board that we would go into a purchase of 2 new buses each year. I'm fine with going away from that for at least 1 year. It does put you 1 year behind as far as moving your fleet in the correct direction to get all of the older buses off the line and then start turning in the lease buses every time you purchase a new bus. So if we can get 3 lease buses this coming year, that will suffice me. I will be able to take some of those older buses off the line until we need them for athletic trips or trips that happen during the day or in the early morning. I will have to take one of those older buses and put it back on the line to get kids to school and from school. But if we can go with 3, that would be, I can deal with that.
James, when you're saying older, what age are you talking about?
2005 to 2008 model buses.
Because after 20 years, it can't be on the road anyway, right?
No.
Right,
They
so.
can still run if they pass inspection.
So if we do this to offset what we're trying to do with regards to cuts, this 1 year, that's not gonna create an adverse effect, right?
I think we'll be okay.
You'll all have this in your folder.
James, how many buses are we talking about? How many buses do we run?
26.
And how many do we still lease already?
David, I can't remember, I don't have that figure in front of me.
Probably.
Because we just started with.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's either 12 to 13 is what we have leased.
Correct, so 13 weeks.
And those were leased before I came on board. They were already on the.
That's whenever leasing was not, what's more advantageous than buying.
Right.
Yes, how many buses total?
26 total we have on routes every day.
And that's not included when they have to go out for the events to go take them somewhere else.
Yeah, we'll have to pull one off. It goes on a trip. We have to pull, one of the older buses that we use as spares, and it runs a rally in the morning or the afternoon, depending on the
So
situation.
how many spares do you have at the moment?
6.
That are still safe and?
Yes, we're keeping those going, but they're difficult, especially with the older model internationals, which you witnessed 2 of those breaking down last year at the same day.
James, when a lease bus breaks down, who fixes it?
It goes to the bus shop, to the company.
So
Yes.
we don't fix it?
No,
When
Because
a
it-
lease bus needs new tires,
we take care of that.
we put on the tires. What expenses do we have outside of just leasing the bus?
You have the oil
No
change.
maintenance.
Yeah, we handle all the brake work and all the general maintenance,
So if we
filters.
lease a bus, we do everything we would normally
Except-
do with a bus that we purchased, with the exception of what?
With the exception of major mechanical breakdowns, engine, computer, transmission, things of that nature.
We don't have a choice. I mean, if we talk about cutting what we need to get to, we don't.
And that's,
you know,
I
we
just
don't
wanna
have an
make
option.
sure we make it a 1 year,
Yeah.
and then if everything's
We
better
can
next year,
decide
we can.
year by year.
Yeah,
And I wanna get out of the habit, but I understand.
The new buses to fill
And the benefit of losing a couple of the old buses is maintenance.
Yeah.
And,
So to lease one bus is $18,000 a year.
is that correct? I think
Yeah.
that's the right number. They're $125 a day. Now, the existing 14 buses that we have right now leased are under an old plan. If they do not have air conditioning, they're $85. If they have air conditioning, they're $95. The company, 3 years ago, because of various things, raised the price to $125. But we still have that contract every year for $85 and $95, but anything that we lease in the future is $125.
And instead of buying a brand new bus, what you did was
Last
you
year,
got the
we
lease bus.
purchased 2 used buses, that's
Saved
correct.
us a ton of money on that
That's
too.
correct.
Well, my line of thinking is, okay, at $18,000, I could lease 8 buses for the price of one. So my question is, you know, if they're providing, I mean, if we're talking about leasing, and we're gonna get 3 buses, to me, that's awesome. But I know the situation you're in, scratching your head, scrambling, trying to find buses. And I know we're saving money, Nikki, by doing this, but my thing is, why aren't we leasing more? Are we losing money to lease here?
Yeah, we're losing money.
How much are we losing?
If we have a.
When we lease a bus, how much do we
If we
lose?
buy a bus, that's $184,000.
How much?
$184,000.
To buy a bus?
That's 2 buses.
2 buses.
Sorry, yeah.
Well, this says that a bus costs, a new
$92,000.
bus is around $130,000. That's what it says at the bottom.
That's a new, yes,
That's brand new. We're talking with the bus.
We're not buying new buses anymore,
No.
you're buying used buses.
Right. But in that first box, it says, it's talking about 2 buses. 2 buses would cost $184,000.
Okay.
If we lease, you know, for the same 20-year period, we'll pay out $362,000, right at half. I mean, right at twice the amount.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about a lot of maintenance that you probably don't have to make. I mean, we're not gonna have $180,000 worth of maintenance on 2 buses for those years. So, I mean.
But again, we're just talking about a year to get from where we at to where we need to be, and you can always revert back to that. I mean, to me personally, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get where we need to get to, otherwise, the budget's not gonna be where we trying to get it, you know, and again,
And so you're good with the leasing of 2?
3.
I mean, 3 instead of the
purchase.
second option.
That's correct. But I would like to add something to that.
That's at 125 per day, right?
125 per day, yes, sir. And I talked to Ms. Meredith about this, and Mr. Sunday, and also Ms. McCann, that we do not have a backup for our lift bus for wheelchair students. We've never had one. And we are sometimes running into issues where junior high needs it for a trip. High school needs it for a trip. And so I
Rebecca, we violate the law, well, I mean, we don't have a choice, those are things we
Well,
gotta.
I mean, if we, so far, I mean, just the Lord's been with us and we haven't ever had to make that decision, but if we ever, like.
It's
were
better to have it
to-
than not need to use it,
So
than not
can
have it
we
and need it.
lease one that
That's
has
correct.
a
I would
lease?
like to try to lease one
I think
as a spare.
Would the price be different,
No,
obviously?
it would still be the same,
Well,
125.
that should be,
It would just be, instead of a 100, a 71 passenger bus, this is a 25, about a 20 to 25 passenger bus with the lift capability on it. And we could use it also for small trips. I would use it just about every day for small trips, such as maybe cross country, which had, 10 athletes instead of pulling a 71 passenger bus. I can now take that bus. and use
Is it as big as the regular bus?
No, it's not, it's small.
It holds like 20 people.
Yeah, about 20 people.
Well, that makes sense.
but Randy, I would say purchase whatever we need to purchase that makes us comply with the law. So if you need a special ed, whatever, that would be your discretion to
We've been
purchase that.
lucky that the bus that we have with the lift has not had any mechanical issues. But if it were to go down, I have the backup.
So can we use two?
Yes. I can put it to use.
That's what I'm saying.
The other bus, is it 25 passengers?
Yes,
or
it
is
is. Yes, it is.
And it has a handicap?
So let me get this straight in my head. So what we're talking about is leasing 2 buses, and then the third bus would be the lift bus.
Leasing 3 and adding to that a lift for us.
Okay, that's what I'm,
four.
that's the way I see it.
David, does that take us out of the ballpark?
No, that's all, sounds good.
I just want you to do one thing. I'm all about leasing the buses. I just want to know over however long we do this, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. I want to know what the cost is outside of the lease agreement. Like, how much are we really spending on maintenance is what I want. Like on those 3 buses that when we lease them this year, I'd like to know how much it costed us versus how much it would cost us to work on a dang bus 15 years old. Because I know you have a lot of costs, and I know the biggest problem you have is, I wish we could lease 5.
Well, any bus that we have that breaks down is gonna have to go either to Scott for the internationals or down to Ross buses for the Bluebirds, because we don't have the computer to hook up to it to see what the problem is.
I think,
Unless it's something very obvious that we know.
correct me if I'm wrong, Bo, but I think what you're trying to say, I think what you're saying is, do we know, like, say bus number 23, how much maintenance we did on that bus during the year compared to bus number 18, how much maintenance we did on that bus during the year? Do we have records of how much maintenance each bus is costing us individually each year?
That's kept it by
So what I'm trying to get at, Randy, is it's almost in my mind, almost feasible to lease as many freaking buses as we can. Maybe not right now, but I'm just saying, with this idea that we all have to save money on our budget. That's a big number that we have out there on buses. And second, what James has said.
But there again, we have maintenance on those lease buses.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how much, when you look at the 92,000 versus $125 a day and all that, it's easier for me to say, let's do a lease bus. But then you throw the maintenance into her, and it just, I don't know if it's that much of a difference. I don't know if it's that much of a headache to lease rather than own.
Right.
Well, you really are spending twice as much.
Tell us how much, again, one more time.
Well, the number's right there in that first box.
I'm
$18,000 times 5 years, that's $92,000. At that point, we would have bought a bus that we would run for another 15 years without any cost. you're talking about spending $92,000 over the next 15 years of maintenance before leasing makes sense. I mean, no bus is gonna cost us $92,000 to run from year 6 to run year 20. So, I mean, there's no way.
So they're making a whole lot of money off of us leasing.
They're counting on people not leasing, really. And if they do, they're going to
So
hedge their
basically,
bets.
this decision is to help us with a budget for right now, because that's the only, okay.
That's what this is
So
about.
to lease buses, 5 or 6 buses a year makes no financial sense at all. to you.
Not on a long-term basis. Short-term, yes, long-term.
And I agree with you to the point, unless the maintenance, which I'm asking Jane, unless the maintenance is that much, you know?
The maintenance is not going to be that much on those years. Well, years 1 through 20.
And the only other thing is we keep a new bus the whole time. We always got new buses, and we're not deteriorating. So we keep new buses, and our people and our kids and everybody's being transported on new buses. That's the only advantage of being leased. But it sounds to me like we're losing money in this. It may be worth it.
Does anybody want to make a motion that we proceed with this?
I'll make a motion we proceed with it.
I'll second. All in favor?
And add
And add the other bus.
Yeah. And add it.
So I'm assuming the resolution should read only for 25, 26.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
A 1 year stipulation, 1 school year stipulation.
Right, just coming school. All right, let's move on to F. F is another thing that that is part of our budget and managing our budget. And what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to decide to put into effect a reduction in force act for our to do this. It's just part of our policy. To implement this as part of our policy, so we're gonna have to vote on this too. And what this amounts to is that the reduction in force is the attrition that we've had, and then not replacing some of the positions that, well, I'll let you explain that.
So when we really started digging into the budget, and looking at every area, we looked at, our grant funding, and if we could move some positions into grant funding that were general fund, and then we began looking at, our enrollment numbers and deciding where we needed to make cuts as far as each school, and so, of course, our enrollment is down, and so that, when you do the math on that, make sure you have 18 or less students, and so we'll have to, cut a position at, Grayson, at Columbia, and at Union Central, and then we're going to cut two sped positions, one at Union Central and one at the junior high. And then, move some sped stuff around at the high school to make that, but what really came out was we were overstaffed in our paraprofessionals. And so when, and we're not real sure how that happened, because just over the course, you may have had a para who was a day-by-day, or they were with a student, and when somebody else moved, they got that spot, and we replaced, and they just general fund absorbed 6 extra positions than what should actually be allotted. And so we really sat down with the general fund and the grant ones, and then the high-cost services, and in order to do that, the board will have to enforce this, or enact this reduction of personnel, so that we will look at our performance and effectiveness of our personnel, if there's certification or academic preparation, like if there's an associate's degree or a highly qualified status, and then seniority. And so Angela and I would sit down with those evaluation instruments and kind of quantify those numbers to do that. But in order to do that, you have to give me the authority to make that happen.
I'm gonna need a motion.
Now, Nick, again.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So I'm confused as to why we have to give you the authority to do that. I thought Act 1 entitled you to hire and fire as you saw fit. So why do we have to?
There might be cases where this person wouldn't be fired, but when you have to reduce your employment, you have to enact this reduction of personnel RIF policy. in
So are
order
they
to do
losing
it.
their job?
Some may move just because of the fluidity of some of our students moving from one school
But
to
you don't have that
another.
authority already?
You have to enact this reduction
It's
in
the
personnel.
reduction in personnel.
I get that, but I'm trying to determine the difference between, I thought Act One, and this is my ignorance, but I thought Act One gave our superintendent the ability to manipulate the staff as he or she saw fit, and that's not true?
Not,
Well,
Yeah.
Nick, it is true, but RIF is totally different than a
So
regular hire.
explain that to me, I'm just trying to learn. I mean, I'm just a
Me
vote
or
on a
Vera? Are you-
I don't care, I'm just trying, I'm just a vote on a reduction act, and I don't understand what it is. I don't understand what the difference between that and Act One is.
so typically when you hire, you have a position to fill. And so I have the authority to hire or to appoint a principal to hire a teacher or, custodian, whoever they want at their school. They also have the Act One, if someone, does something bad or willfully neglects or breaks their contract or whatever, then I have the authority to let that person go or to fire them or ask for a resignation back. In this case, that's not the case. It's that we have too many personnel for the job numbers that we should have. And in order to reduce the budget, you're going to have to eliminate some of those positions. And so you have to follow this policy in order to decide who stays and who doesn't.
Excluding willful neglect of duty and insubordination.
Okay, so that's the key.
Yeah. You're reducing your force.
So in other words, I don't have to have a reason to
Right.
let you go. It's
Like if
just-
there's 20 teachers and no
Right.
one's done anything grossly wrong, then we only need 18 teachers.
Right.
Somebody's got to.
And Bo, now, my understanding is that this is in giving her the authority in the event that we need to do that.
Right.
So, I mean, as far as I know right now, I don't know if we need to do it, we've
Yeah.
talked about it,
Well,
but they
So
haven't.
is this something
There-
we're just write in the policy that stays here forever, or is
No,
this
no,
It's
it's
just on
for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This-
this
Okay.
year. And it may not have to happen,
Right.
because
We
we
don't
do
know.
know that there are
Well,
some
you know where I stand
positions.
on that, because I told you, I'm not in disagreement with it. I know that's hard, but I'm not in disagreement with it. I just couldn't understand
Yeah.
why,
The difference.
yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Nick, let the
Somebody
board,
make a
Randy, go
motion.
on record to say that none of us want the option to get rid of anybody.
No.
That's not the goal. The goal is to have this in place in the event that it needs to take place, once they look at everything that we've looked at with regards to the retreat or whatever, because there's some things that they had to look at. If they didn't look at it, then the board would have been forced to look at those things. I think we felt better letting the administration make the deduction that were necessary to operate the school system rather than us coming in and doing things that we don't have day-to-day operation with. That's my position. You guys' position may be totally different.
With that being said, I'll make a motion, we accept.
I second.
All in favor? Do we need a roll call? Oh,
Yeah.
no, we don't need a roll call.
Randy, for that, you probably need a roll call.
No, it doesn't.
But let's do it.
But we
Yeah,
can do
that's
it.
fine.
Do
All right, well.
Prince,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
Ballard. Yes. Glass.
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
Passes.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a poor substitute.
And Nick, it's just, one of the individuals emailed me today about jobs. Before we started announcing that certain people are gonna get, out of this position, before we do that, let's make sure that we know who's gonna be, eliminated and why they're gonna be eliminated, and explain to them that this is not something that the board is taking, kind of doing. It's only being done because it has to be done. This is the only option that we have.
Well, 3 years of adopting a
Right.
negative budget. At some point, y'all sat here and said, I'm not voting for another.
Right.
And so we were charged with, okay, you've got to, and that means you have to look at we're cutting programs that we don't wanna cut. But it's like, okay, if it's this or, when you're trying to reach that number, you've gotta make hard decisions.
And some of this, again, may work itself out.
It may, and there's
And
some
some it
who may
does.
be transferring to like a bus driver or something, and we're short on that, so, you know, we're hoping that things will work out, and we don't have to, but you have to enact this so that we can take care of it as time
But
goes
it's the
on.
last
It
resort.
is the last resort.
The last resort.
And if it is, blame them.
Okay, let's move on to G.
So when you under the bus, you do throw me under the bus.
And, this is the millage rates for 2025 that we're looking at. David, would you like to explain or?
Item, page 1 of 3 is just the resolution itself, so we won't skip that page, go to page 2. First couple of columns under proposed, there's the millage in green, and then the numbers that will result. For general fund, it would reflect an increase of $122,000, maintenance fund, an increase of $41,000, and debt service is kind of unusual, an increase of $258,000. The first two funds have no change in millages. They have increase in property values, so therefore we have an increase in the property tax. Debt service, last year we collected 13.4 mils. This year I'm proposing we do 15.7. And that's based off of talking to our bond attorneys, Foley and Udell, and they recommended that we collect enough in cash to pay the bonds. And there we have a paid in protest amount that's presenting a problem cash flow wise. This past year, the general fund bought part of the debt service fund receivable in order to fund cash flow the bond payments. And this year our bond payment is, it's in red, line 32, $1,003,612. We collected 81% of our debt service that we had millages on. The other 19% is sitting in the checking account over at the sheriff's office, waiting on a ruling. Foley Udell people said, y'all just need to go ahead and bump it up and collect the whole amount. Whenever the court case is resolved, hopefully in our favor, that money will be sitting there, and we'll get it, and we can use that to pay down the bond, the remaining bonds that we have. And at that point, we could maybe, reduce the millage and that.
They did call and say they was waiting on until 2026 until I got out the board.
That might be true.
Yeah.
So,
He said since I've been BI, whatever, about it, they want to wait till 2026.
okay.
So it's your fault.
Yeah, right.
Well, now we know. So anyway, those are proposed millages. I mean, if y'all disagree, I mean, we need to know. 'Cause we
That
have-
was a recommendation of the attorneys, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
We have
Oh,
Yeah,
roll
roll
call.
Oh, yeah, we need roll call.
Rents,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ballard? Yes. Glass?
Yes.
Bass?
Yes.
Passes?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, so now that brings us to H, which is the discuss and vote on the discontinuation of the estimated 13 check payouts for mid-contract year termination with some limited exceptions. And this is, you want to explain that, Nikki? You want to do that?
Drink your second.
I'll do it. What I gave y'all Saturday has changed very slightly to the items I highlighted in yellow there. Effective July 1, 2025, and then where it said, the employee can appeal a request.
H.
Where it said, the president, I've changed that to the school board. And, so anyway, basically what we're trying to do is encourage people to stay for their full contract year. You know, whether we're talking about a teacher or, whoever. And if they leave mid-year and they're not retiring, they don't have some sort of health issue that's a problem, we might be another exception.
So if they get another job, they won't qualify.
That doesn't help, yeah, that's a negative.
Are those limited exceptions, are they stated somewhere?
Yeah, they're in that
Okay.
exception,
They're in
second
there.
column, second paragraph. Retirement, death, or major illness. And then any special circumstance with the approval of the superintendent. And if that is denied, they can appeal that decision to the school board.
And there will be something in the packet whenever somebody signs a contract, let them know that if they leave early.
It already is.
It already is.
It already is, it's just the way that we have been interpreting it. Yeah.
Okay.
So in their, contract, your contract is for the amount in the salary schedule, which is what they are obligated. And there is a portion of the sales tax in your monthly salary. But the 13th check is extra outside of that contract. And our practice has just been that, okay, we go ahead and give them their portion of the 13th check. And so when we got to looking at it, we're like, actually, you're not entitled to any of that if you don't finish your contract. So as long as you finish your contract, you get it. But if you don't, for just because I'm taking a job, then you're done. So
I agree.
So will this start the 25, 26?
Yes, sir, July 1.
start July 1.
And if they do leave mid-year with the exception, there's that little box that we would pay based on that schedule rather than currently what we do is we look for the past 3 years, get an average, and prorate it by the number of calendar days they work, or contract days they work out of their contract, and that's the amount. This just simplifies a little bit. It's pretty equitable. I mean, it's pretty much on target with how things are already being paid out. It just simplifies.
And Nick, your goal to this was to encourage people to stay, right?
Stay. You sign a contract, stay.
And it just makes sense to me.
Finish your contract.
Maria?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Let's do
second.
it.
All in favor? All right, David, that brings us to you again. Financial report.
All right, item I, there's 4 pages. It's pretty much the same thing that we talked about for the past several months. I mean, we have a budget on general fund of $900,000. With MFP and high cost services, we took a little ding there. So that $900,000 budget would go up negatively. Currently, we're at $110,000 to the good. Last year at this time, we were $1,100,000 to the good. That $1.1 billion had that $404,000 of timber money. So that's a big part of that thing. And then I'm sure we've had some ESSER costs that we had in the prior year that now general funds haven't picked up in front of them. Sales tax, that middle column, we're up $1.1 million in the current year versus last year's $963,000. We're down in revenue, but we're down more in expenditures because we didn't pay out that extra money at Christmas time. And because of that, we are, $193,000 favorable. Additionally, we're also started the year with $157,000. That's under column A, all the way down at the bottom where it has fiscal year 24. I have a $157,000. That's cash balance that's in that account. That, and I know we talked about this at the retreat, whether we could maybe use some of the money out of sales tax for benefits, and that's paying down on some of the retiree costs for office group
That's
benefits.
the cap, right? That's the cap. That's when you're talking about capping, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think what we kind of loosely talked about at the
Right.
retreat was $200,000 being dedicated out of fiscal year 26 towards that, and an amount, we didn't name an amount, but we roll forward $157,000, maybe 150 for the current year.
So that needs to be on the agenda for next month, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But
That
July-
would not affect anybody's
Right.
13th check as compared to what they got in the current year.
Right.
I mean, in
It'll be 26, 27.
in 24, they'll get a similar amount of 25. So the check will not go down, and it will help, obviously.
But I'm saying, we need to have the resolution done by July 1 of this year.
Yes.
Because you want to implement it for 25, 26. I mean, yeah, 25, 26.
That's correct.
So do we need to have
Just need to make a note to add that to next month's agenda.
a finance committee meeting, so we're going to agree that the cap is 200, 250? Or do we already, Because I know we discussed it, have we arrived at where we
I
want
don't
to
know that
be?
we've arrived at exactly what the cap would be yet.
So,
but,
are we gonna have a meeting?
we'll have to have a discussion.
I think the big thing is just maybe for the board to, resolution, whatever, that we pay out a similar amount in the current, at June 30, 25 as we did at June 30, 24.
Just wanna make sure that 13th check stays
Yeah,
consistent.
well, it's another that's affected now, yeah.
Yeah, 13 checks will be affected this year.
So, let's see, page 3 is lunch. It's running very similar to last year, $92,000 ahead, versus last year at $86,000. So I mean, we're kind of on track. Last year we had a deficit of $51,000. I budgeted a deficit this year of $106,000, mainly because of food costs. Food costs, I don't know how great Sandra is doing on food costs, but on the surface, it looks like she's doing good. So, and as far as I know, we're paying out just the same bills that we've had in the prior year as we do in the current year. So I think Sandra's doing a good job on that. And so maybe the 106 is a little bit aggressive on the negative side.
And her major concern with, the, food costs is the paper goods, yes, for the grab and go, you know, takeout meals, and so those costs have risen, and so, we made some decisions for next year's budget to cut that out, and that would save us about $42,000.
And then the last page, maintenance fund, James is doing a great job over there. And maybe God too on not having hailstorms or whatever. Although maybe hailstorms become my insurance, I don't know, but that is, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, let's go to the district leader update.
Are we good?
I would like to say, I want to forward something to Kaylee and send to y'all. I know y'all probably heard it in the news, you saw this little bit, so Head Start was completely gonna be cut out of the federal budget, like not funded at all. Now it's native, they're saying it's in the city version, but with some, we don't know what the funding would look like. So we have signed on to everything we can, like showing support. I would like to forward it to y'all.
Yes.
For y'all to do personally, because if we lost that, that's like 18 employees. There's no way the board could pick it up, but the board is also gonna lose all the indirect costs that comes from that, all those children with IEPs. So that's a huge plus to general fund, that if we lost the funding, and not only would we lose those jobs, but we would lose that money that comes into the general fund.
So we need to get a resolution backed up in, support of this and have it made.
I mean, you could, but the best thing you can do is to sign, like, there's something the National Head Start Association put out that when you click the link, it has, by your zip code, it populates every person, so it's Kennedy, Cassidy, and Letlow, and it sends them that just generic form letter. But they think that, the push prior, from the first leak that it wasn't in the budget to now it's made it to what they call the skinny version, is because of the influx of public support trying to.
And if you do that link, I bet you can probably keep, but they can keep like a number of how many.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
So that,
absolutely.
In the link.
she's gonna send it.
I'll get Kaylee to send it out for you. Because it's real easy, it's just, you put in your name, I think phone number and zip code, and when you click it, it links it to those, and you don't have to type anything, as far as a letter, you just sign it on to it.
Monica, do you know Kyrie?
Yeah, Kari, when he,
Yeah, he told me he met you, he knows you very
yeah,
well.
yeah. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I had a couple things. We had the workforce 101 Ready Set Work, Barry came to it, for seniors, and so we had community, we had workforce development, everybody came together. So it was like a boot camp for our seniors, everything from interview skills to resume building to networking and social media presence, all of it. The kids, we sent out a survey to all everything was great. Even kids who normally checked out earlier stayed through the whole thing. We sent it out to parents, but I think we got like 4 responses. One of them was, kids are out of class and they're getting ready for finals, so I think we need to push it back in April, make it a little earlier in April. And do door prizes, so there are things we're gonna change, but I think it's something we need to do every year, because it was really good and the kids all had good comments about it. And then the other thing is that we're looking at next year, a part of a grant through 4-H to have drones, a drone class. So it would be taught by Mr. Burgard, who is one of our ag teachers. It would be a 4-year course. The first half would be FAA Part 107, small unmanned aircraft operations. Kids would get certified in that. And then the second part would be UAS, unmanned aerial systems in ag. They would actually learn how you use the drone application in ag, what all that does.
Can adults from the community?
Yeah, I don't think so. We have a meeting with him in the morning. We have a call with him in the morning just to kind of finalize and see everything, but they would pay for the, exam fees for the kid to get certified in the FAA Part 107. They would provide a classroom set of drones, which would be 10, and they would provide 2, I have no idea what this is, but it sounds like they're special, but 2 EVA Nano Plus drones. So they must be the really big ones, the really, with the, all that stuff. So anyway, so we're finalizing that to hopefully have a drone class next year.
So what is the age group?
They have to be 16 or older. Yes, they have to be 16. So that'd be a new certification for our kids.
Randy, I saw one you could buy, like 250,000, you can fly. There you are, go get it.
Well, you know, they're using the drones now to spray.
Yeah,
fields.
you've not seen it, it's something.
Yeah, my neighbor thought it was a.
Jaguars are using them too.
Yeah.
Everybody's using it.
Yeah, they're very popular.
Especially in this area, because you can't feed them.
Ms. Wiley, you have anything? Good, all right. Brian, anything? James? Rebecca?
Just if you haven't watched our Gunmo Games social media, check it out. It's great. We have some very talented kids and adults working.
Yeah, and Lindsay,
And our rookie of the year for the district was our kids coach there, and just the difference between when we went to Shreveport in the fall and this time. You can tell that she's had a huge impact on those kids. We weren't just out there having a good time. Like if you in the videos, like we're really throwing the shot put the right way. And you know, it's that kind of stuff. And so she's done a great little job with them. So we're super excited that for her, just in general, but especially the impact on that particular project.
and me, okay. I have mine short and sweet. Haley put your May events in here. Next week is like celebration week. Every night there is a banquet or something going on, and of course graduation next Friday night. And then she also put a copy of the Clinton Strengths in your folder, that sheet that Dina went over that had everybody's like what I need, and so everybody who took the test is on there. So go ahead and just put your test and I have your information to it. So that's all I have.
Nikki, will you please mention a little bit about Isabella and her performance, to let the board know that we had a student who performed outstanding. Most adults couldn't do what she did. I had asked her to come, I think she probably forgot about it. But if she can be here next month, I think we need to publicly acknowledge her and her courage to do something that most people don't get the opportunity to do.
After waiting how many hours, like we were there for hours, waiting, and she got the legislative to testify, and it was a very heated environment, because there were a lot more people who were anti than were for, or actually it was backwards.
And that was us
There were,
and other folks.
yes, and so there were only 2 people on ours, but she came in at the end, so Barron spoke, and then Ms. Fontenot spoke, and then Isabella wrapped it up with a student's perspective, and she stole the show.
Yeah, but I want to focus on her, because
She did a great job.
She did a
we
great job.
don't know where she may end up, but she's done something again that most people in this room couldn't do. So to give her the courage and the aspiration to continue to do, to speak out on things that she believed in, she did an outstanding job. And I just think when kids do that, if they can just hang something on the wall that they were acknowledged for doing that, I think it's appropriate for this board to recognize her the next meeting.
I agree, we should have it.
I got one comment. I just want to say, Mr. McCann, thank you for all the hard work on the budget, and everybody involved. And because I know there's some unpopular decisions going on, and there's never anything easy about that. And great party, and continue to pray for you, because it's not a fun thing. But thank you for the hard work, and I know it will continue, so thank you.
I'm blessed to have a team who can just put the work in. So, thank you.
And Katie, about 8:30 this morning, were your ears ringing?
Probably.
It wasn't ringing this morning?
That's too far away to remember, huh?
We're making it now.
Yeah.